Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Interesting week last week. We have some interesting protagonists, I would say, starting from Sinergia Capital, which has been really the protagonist on two deals from last week. So for the listener, we have Codemotion, developer community platform raising 8 million euro in a round led by Sinergia Venture Fund, which is the venture fund of Sinergia Capital, and participated by existing investors, including Primo. So yeah, definitely the biggest round of the week, of last week. Codemotion has been around also for a good amount of time. They've been working extremely well, so that's a super interesting deal. Then Nick, you have insights, so share what you can.
You're very happy about this deal because Codemotion is a very nice product, a very nice platform with great entrepreneurs and founders. It's a female-led company, for example, and that's very, very nice for the ecosystem and for us as well. And it was one of the first investments we made with the Panakes Ventures Fund, so the one vintage 2016. And at the very beginning, Codemotion was just a developers conference. It was a physical event, basically. And they had this vision of moving all of it to a virtual world, let's say, becoming a developers platform. And we really married that vision, and we're really happy that started taking shape, and it is happening. So they're doing it, and this new round is a good signal that the direction was the right one.
Awesome.
So very, very good, very good.
Yeah, and also the co-investors is pretty much a lot of the big names in Italy. So that's really interesting, I would say. So it's a very good pool. I would say it's a very interesting round with super strategic investors. So very good signal.
Yeah, I would say that's not only Italian investors, because we had the Endeavor Catalyst funds joining the round. Mm-hmm. Catalyst is the fund that's associated to the Endeavor, that program platform for top entrepreneurs, in particular in emerging economies. Very good ecosystem, so we're very happy that they decided to join the round. And then, we have great co-investors, CDP Venture Capital, that's co-invested with us earlier. Then we have Azimut, they're always around. Of course. And Sinergia in particular, they led the investment round. As I said, it was a good week for them. So 2 different announcements. So should we say a couple of words about them? Because that's,
also the second one, definitely.
Some bits.
Yeah, totally.
About Sinergia, Sinergia.
About Sinergia, yes. So what is interesting about Sinergia is that, let's maybe start from the history. So Sinergia started as a PE fund. So their first product, so to speak, they were essentially they raised money essentially to invest in small and medium enterprise from different verticals, and they've been basically raising funds of the hundreds million kind of size, so pretty substantial funds. And then with Sinergia, with Sinergia Venture Fund, that's their first properly labeled venture fund. And let's talk about that for sure. I'm pulling out some data actually. So the target commitment is 100 million. They started investing in 2021, and it's still ongoing. And what is mentioned is that it's still in fundraising, so it's kind of rolling. So they start investing as they gather capital. So I thought that was particularly interesting. And also the investment size is pretty big. It's between 2 and 7 million tickets. So that's very substantial.
Yeah, they're real Series A investor. I was taking a look at they completed 2, 4, 6 investments in 6 different companies, starting from March 2021. In different areas, we say from contents.com, that's SEO and artificial intelligence, passing through for Gift, Click On, that's marketing technology, HR technology, Helpy, Agricooltur, that's another news from this week, and Codemotion. So they invest across the board in the digital sector.
Yes.
It's a good player that complements the Italian ecosystem. So we don't have many Series A investors, so good to have one operating here.
Totally. And talking about the second, the Agricooltur round, basically Agricooltur raised 5 million, and Sinergia Venture is the lead investor. So this is basically a company which is working into the, I would say, aeroponic space. Yeah, I just wanted to get it right, since 2018. So also basically working in a trend which has been growing in different shapes, but definitely the future of agriculture and alternatives to traditional agriculture. That's something definitely worth mentioning, and that founders have been working in Italy in that sector. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we've got a few companies raising capital and growing in the agri-tech at large. So aeroponics is one of the specifics, but we do have, I'm thinking about Panakes Farms, X-Farm, that's in the news this week as well, Agricooltur, but there are others I would say as well. So it seems that it appears that we are developing some vertical knowledge and market base for this type of company. Very nice.
Totally. Interesting. Moving on, 101 Travel experience startup raising 2.5 million in a round led by CDP Venture Capital and of course Primo. So essentially trying to reinvent the traveling experience, especially post-COVID. People have been trying to make sure that there was a new way of conceiving traveling by simplifying travel, by making it smoother, by using technology to actually make it extremely efficient. So this is definitely an interesting play on the travel industry.
Yeah, 181 Travel had another name up until recently. It was called Nowsdream, and it was another investment from our previous funds. Their history was a bit bumpy, of course, because they started out in the pure business to consumer sector with seaside experiences, and they found out it was a difficult market to address. Then they managed to pivot towards the B2B distribution, and then COVID came, and the team proved they had a huge resiliency because they managed to survive 2020 and thrive actually in 2021, 2022, and that's where the current round materialized, basically, because they managed to grow, to turn around the company, and to find excellent partners for their go-to-market strategy. Just reading from the article, TH Resorts, Turi Club, Villages, Costa Crociere, so very good players and very renowned players on the market.
Awesome. Definitely big names, and that's a great sign, because that's definitely a signal that also big travel companies are actually sensitive to the new way of perceiving travel in general and the new way of using traveling up. That's definitely an awesome signal for the market for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, experiences is one of the market segments in tourism that is expected to grow quite a bit, much more than the traditional areas. So that's probably part of the opportunity over there.
So medtech also has been in the news and has been extremely interesting with 2 deals happening last week. The first one is Approxima, medtech startup raising 1.6 million in a round led by Panakes Partners and Club degli Investitori. And the second one being Medendi, another medtech startup raising 1.4 million in equity and debt from a pool of business angel. So again, I think there are a few very interesting elements here. So first of all, I would say that definitely Panakes is on the edge, on the forefront of the biotech and medtech investment in Italy. And then I'm curious, Nick, what you think about that, but definitely some of the top 3 investors in Italy right now. And what they're doing is always also interesting because Club degli Investitori is also surprisingly really well exposed to the sector. So it's a really interesting way to design a thesis for a syndicate of investors.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Panakes is a very specialized and specific investor in the medtech sector. They've got a good track record, excellent history. The partners have a deep experience in the sector. And we also need to consider that biotech and medtech historically in Italy has been a good market. So we have quite a nice history of companies started in Italy and developed in Italy. So we've got many managers, founders, entrepreneurs who've been successful in this market. So I'm not surprised that there are a lot of business angels with good knowledge, good experience, and interested in investing in this vertical. So
beautiful.
And I would say also because Italy is a good country for medtech.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think also universities are really probably like medicine in general has been like really well positioned when it comes to new technologies and connection between research institution and early stage investors. So it looks, I'm not an expert, but from the outside, it definitely looks that there is a lot of movement and a lot of great work done between connecting the two points.
Yeah, I don't know much on that about that, but I think it's a bit spotty. So there are good local R&D and university-related research and development centers. I wouldn't say that's spread across Italy from what I've heard, but for sure there are a few excellences where interesting startup can emerge from.
Awesome. So another question that I was thinking about is that maybe, so we've seen also sort of a combination of fundraise between debt and equity. So I was wondering whether right now in 2023, there are like certain verticals that they can easier, I would say, access to debt instead of pure equity, especially for early stage projects. So sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't see it. It's tough to find a pattern to actually think that maybe, I don't know, what are the ones that have a higher chance to raise debt and not only equity for early stage projects. So I don't know what's your feel on your side from what you've been seeing in the past few months, but it's interesting because it's common, but I cannot really pin down where exactly that will be the most frequent vertical for that.
Yeah, that I don't know. That's a very good question. So I agree with you. We are seeing that rounds that are not pure debt financing rounds, even though in the case of Medendi, that's basically a bank loan guaranteed by the state, essentially. Yeah. So that's a specific type of instrument that's been around for a few years in Italy, and where startups in particular can get access to that type of financing. Not many startups use that because at the end it's always a bank loan, even if it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed in case things go south, but if things go sort of well, you still need to repay the debt. There are a few banks that I've seen that are doing something more a bit less bank-like. Intesa, for example, is one. And it was in the news last week with the debt financing round 2 meters. And sometimes I've seen Intesa offering a debt tool with some convertible covenants. So that debt sometimes with some rules can become equity actually. So that's unusual for a bank, but I've seen, for example, Intesa doing that. So the debt is there, so it's being used by startups as well. I'm not sure that the access to debt is increasing And in these market conditions, we might see more access to debt, not because it's more convenient, but because it's a more readily available source of finance for startups. The market is a bit crazier right now, so there might be equity investors that are a bit more scared of investing at this stage. We'll see how the market moves. If you take from the chart, what we've seen about rounds, it seems that equity investments are a bit slower this year, same speed as 2020. So there might be some indication there that there are startups that need finance, and so they resort to debt because equity is not readily available right now. But I mean, this is just consideration, just looking at the headlines.
Interesting. All right, moving on. Voiseed, generative AI startup raising €1 million in a round led by LIFTT. So that's super interesting because after the big wave of ChatGPT and so on taking Twitter and the internet by storm, this is kind of the first substantial round for some generative AI startup. And I'm sure there has been some influence of this kind of wave. But digging into the project, I thought it was particularly interesting because it's a very interesting niche. Essentially, what the guys are doing at Voiseed is essentially making dubbing and voice, offered of course in different language, very easy to add to the gaming industry. So all these I don't know the technical term, but all these video games where there is a narration, I don't know if there is a specific terms for it. They need this kind of dubbing, and it's been clunkily done through actors, basically in different languages and so on and so forth. So these guys are actually working on making sure that with AI, they can generate speech with the proper intonation and prosody. So prosody is basically the patterns of intonation. So it's not just a voice by itself, but it's actually something way more expressive than the regular voice. And gaming is the first application, but you can definitely see a lot of different and possible outcome coming out from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, since 12 months ago, probably everybody by now has a very good idea of what generative AI is. So I mean, the fact that you can start to put generative AI startup on your website, it's a matter of wow. That's interesting. That's the hot topic. But I agree with you. That's a very interesting implementation and application of generative AI. And I think that as Italians, this is something that we maybe don't understand well enough because we have very good dubbers. So our actors, national actors, are very good also at dubbing international movies. So we're very used to very good dubbing. But if you go to other countries, the Nordics, for example, where dubbing, there is not huge experience, huge interest probably in dubbing as well. So I mean, good automatic translation and voice translation of the scenes, that's something that maybe would be understood much better.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Also, I would say approach to the market. So low-hanging fruit in this case.
Yeah. And beware actors, because this thing can really kind of choke one possible market that they kind of had it open in the past 10 years, which is the video game dubbing. And now it's been running, but now it's like, oops, we have AI doing that. And that's all.
Yeah. There's this, trends where just a few years ago, the main idea was that AI would take away blue collar jobs, building, moving things around, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems that's not really true, and the white collar jobs are the ones at risk, at least in the way they are carried on today. So developers, actors, dubbers, writers,
Yeah.
Copywriters.
Even painters. I mean, I've heard people saying, even photographer. Look, why? Some people are musician too. It's insane. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, in the graphical art, some people are like thinking, why getting stock photography when tools like DALL-E can actually build exactly what you need with a very good outcome. So there you go. Maybe that's just the beginning.
Yeah, that's true. Even though having said that, I'm more of a believer of the centaur rather than a photographer out of his job. I mean, AI on today is a very powerful tool to empower the professional in their job. So right now, I think that's a matter of learning to use AI rather than being fearful of AI. If you are in that market, if you do not adopt AI, then you are probably in a very bad position as a professional.
Yeah.
Because someone empowered by AI will take your job.
I agree. It's a huge tool, definitely a huge tool that needs to be tamed and understood properly. Unless you make cheese in the Alps for your village, where maybe it's tougher to think.
Good.
Okay, for all the cheesemongers listening to the podcast, you guys are good, so you don't have to fear too much.
For now.
For now, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Nick. So one last point, I would say we start seeing some trends in your equity chart starting 2023. So after a January that has been extremely sort of quiet, then as you mentioned before, we are at 2020 levels in terms of trend. We'll see what's going to happen in February. It's kind of massive when it comes to difference from last year and the previous years. So shall we worry? Shall we not worry? It's early to say. Probably it's early to say, I would say.
I mean, it's early to say. These charts are not about a mounting average. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4 big deals that will move the needle quite a lot. So the right question is, do we have a startup currently in Italy that's able to raise 100 million plus rounds? So they're in a good position to raise that kind of money. Probably yes. Do we have international investors that are willing to invest 100 plus million euros into Italian startup? That's a more complicated question right now. Probably.
To your point. Yeah.
We'll see.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much. And as usual, I'll see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Thank you very much. See you in a week.